There's a white powder sitting on a shelf at your local hardware store right now that kills ticks on contact. Not with poison and not with chemicals, with fossilized skeletons of microscopic algae that are over 30 million years old. A laboratory study published in Experimental and Applied Ecology confirmed 100% tick mortality within 24 hours. The median survival time for exposed ticks was 3 to 5 hours. The ticks cannot develop resistance because the killing mechanism is purely physical. It costs less than $1 per application. And the $26 billion pest control industry in America has absolutely zero incentive to tell you it exists. They did not stop recommending it because it failed. They stopped because it worked too well. A powder that eliminates ticks for pennies cannot generate $300 service calls every 3 weeks. And what cannot generate recurring revenue cannot be allowed to reach your backyard. This is the story of the oldest insecticide on Earth, and why the industry buried it under layers of synthetic chemicals and quarterly billing cycles. Welcome to Forbidden Home Science. If these stories matter to you, subscribe and hit the bell. This is where we dig up what the outdoor industry buried. Before I open this vault, you need to understand what is crawling through your grass right now. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention confirms that reported cases of tick-borne diseases in America have more than doubled since 2004. Lyme disease alone accounts for an estimated 475,000 diagnosed cases every year. And those are just the cases that get caught. A tick can attach to your skin and feed for days without you ever feeling the bite. The initial symptoms of Lyme disease, fatigue, joint pain, low fever look identical to a common flu. By the time you get the correct diagnosis, the bacteria may have already spread to your joints, your heart, your nervous system. Johns Hopkins researchers found that Lyme disease costs the American healthcare system up to $1.3 billion annually. The average patient spends $3,000 more in medical bills the year after diagnosis. And a $15 bag of fossilized algae could have prevented it all. Stay with me because the history behind this powder is as buried as the powder itself. In 1836, a German farmer named Peter Kasten was drilling a well in the hills of Lundberg Heath. His shovel hit something strange beneath the top soil, a chalky white layer of rock that crumbled into fine powder at the slightest touch. Kasten thought he had found limestone, and he spread it across his crops as fertilizer, hoping to improve his yield. But within weeks, he noticed something unexpected in his fields. The insects that had been devouring his harvest were dying, not from poison, but from dehydration. Their bodies dried out and crumbled, scattered among the crops like tiny hollow shells. What Kasten had uncovered was not limestone at all. It was the fossilized remains of diadems, microscopic single-celled algae that lived in ancient lakes and oceans millions of years ago. Their tiny glass-like shells made of pure silica had accumulated on the floor of prehistoric waters over millennia. Silica makes up 26% of the entire Earth's crust by weight, one of the hardest natural substances on the planet. And these datum shells, each one smaller than the width of a human hair, had been quietly waiting underground for 30 million years. When those ancient waters dried up, what remained was a mineral deposit of extraordinary power. The ancient Greeks had already discovered it centuries earlier and used it as a building material for lightweight bricks in their cities. Prehistoric cave painters in France mixed it into their pigments during the Ice Age, but nobody understood its lethal effect on insects until Kasten's accidental discovery in that German hillside. By the late 1800s, farmers across Europe were dusting their grain stores with this powder. Weevils, beetles, mites, every crawling pest that threatened stored food was eliminated without a single drop of chemical. No formulas required and no factory needed. Just ancient fossilized powder doing what it had done for 30 million years. The word spread across the Atlantic. The United States began mining massive Diatomaceous Earth deposits in California, Nevada, Oregon, and Washington. American farmers poured it into barns, silos, chicken coops, and garden beds. It was cheap, abundant, and devastatingly effective against every insect with an exoskeleton. For over a century, this was the standard. Then the Second World War ended and everything changed. This video is just the surface. I have collected everything the outdoor industry does not want you to know. All in the complete Forbidden Home Science. The full Diatomaceous Earth tick elimination protocol with application maps for every yard type. Natural repellents that indigenous tribes mastered centuries ago, and that chemical companies buried. Emergency water purification methods that cost nothing and outperform $40 filters. Fire techniques the military classified as dangerous because they made expensive gear irrelevant. Shelter systems that cost $0 and outperform $200 tents and field tests. Rodent exclusion strategies that break the tick life cycle at its source, and much more. Over 10 guides in one place. No fluff. Straight to the point. The link is in the description. But stay here. The video is just getting started. The petrochemical revolution flooded the market with synthetic pesticides. After 1945, DDT became the miracle solution for every farmer, every homeowner, every government agency. Diatomaceous Earth was pushed to the back of the shelf, then off the shelf entirely. Farmers abandoned their jars of white powder for spray cans of chemicals that promised faster results. The companies selling those chemicals generated billions in annual revenue. When DDT was banned in 1972 because of devastating environmental damage, the industry faced a crossroads: return to the natural mineral solutions that had worked for over a century, or developed new synthetic chemicals that required repeated purchase and professional application. They chose recurring revenue. New formulations replaced DDT on every store shelf in America: Permethrin, Benthrin, Cyfluene, Lambda, Silothrine. Names you cannot pronounce, sold in bottles you cannot understand, applied by technicians you cannot afford to skip, products engineered to degrade in 3 to 4 weeks, so you would need to buy more, requiring professional application, so you would need to hire someone. Products that generated a $26 billion industry built entirely on one simple principle: dependency. The National Pesticide Information Center confirms that over 150 products containing Diatomaceous Earth are registered with the EPA. Right now, the FDA classifies food-grade Diatomaceous Earth as generally recognized as safe, approved for use inside homes and gardens, on farms, and directly on dogs and cats. Yet the average American homeowner has never once heard of using it for tick control. The numbers tell you exactly why. A single residential tick control customer pays between $1,200 and $2,500 per season for chemical sprays. That service must be reapplied every 3 to 4 weeks from April through September. Multiply that by over 13 million residential pest control customers in the United States. That is a revenue stream measured in billions of dollars. And it cannot survive a $15 bag of ancient powder from a farm supply store. If you have made it this far, you already know more about tick defense than 99% of homeowners in America. Subscribe and share this with someone who needs to remember what the industry made us forget. Everything they buried is in the complete vault. Link in the description. Now stay with me. The next vault is the heaviest. So let me ask you a question that should make you uncomfortable. If Diatomaceous Earth is registered with the EPA, classified safe by the FDA, and backed by peer-reviewed research, why is not a single pest control company in America recommending it to you? The answer is not complicated. It is just profitable. The structural pest control industry in the United States generated over $13 billion in service revenue last year alone. 85% of residential pest control revenue comes from recurring contracts. Not one-time treatments, but recurring billing cycles that never end. Every 3 to 4 weeks, a technician arrives at your house with a spray tank full of synthetic chemicals that will degrade before your next billing cycle. That is not pest control. That is a subscription model built on the biological clock of chemical degradation. Diatomaceous Earth does not degrade. It sits on the ground and keeps killing for as long as it stays dry. You cannot build a subscription business around a product that works indefinitely for pennies. You cannot patent fossilized algae. You cannot create a branded version that requires a certified applicator. You cannot generate recurring revenue from a bag of ancient powder that a grandmother can spread with a kitchen spoon. And what cannot generate revenue cannot be recommended. That is the business model the outdoor industry will never explain to you. Now here is what they definitely will not teach you. Here is your protocol. Go to a farm supply store or order food-grade Diatomaceous Earth online. A 10 lb bag costs between $12 and $18 and covers an average suburban yard for an entire season. Never use pool grade or filter grade. Pool grade is heated to extreme temperatures during processing and contains over 60% crystalline silica. That version is dangerous to inhale, while food grade contains less than 2% crystalline silica and is classified safe by the FDA. Identify the tick zones in your yard. The border where your lawn meets woods or shrubs is zone 1. Ticks wait on the tips of tall grass and leaf edges in these transition areas with their front legs extended. Scientists call this behavior questing. They're literally reaching for your ankles and your children's legs as they walk past. Apply a visible line of powder along that entire border. Zone 2 is every shaded and damp area of your property. Under bushes, along fence lines, around stone walls, near wood piles, beneath deck overhangs. Ticks avoid direct sunlight and cluster in moisture and shade. Dust these areas thoroughly with a handheld powder applicator or even a flour sifter. Zone 3 is anywhere your children and pets spend time outdoors around swing sets, sandboxes, dog houses, patio furniture, and outdoor play areas. Create a protective perimeter of powder around these spaces. The powder works the moment a tick crawls through it. The microscopic silica particles adhere to the waxy lipid layer that coats the tick's exoskeleton. That oily layer is the only thing preventing the tick from losing its body moisture. Once the Diatomaceous Earth strips it away, dehydration begins immediately. The tick cannot drink water fast enough to replace what the powder is pulling out of its body. Within 3 to 5 hours, the tick is dead. A study on American dog ticks confirmed that mortality begins within the first 60 minutes of exposure. At standard application rates on pine straw ground cover, researchers documented 100% mortality. The critical difference between this and every chemical on the market is evolution. Ticks are already developing resistance to pyrimethamine across the northeastern United States. But you cannot evolve armor against a mechanical process that strips your exoskeleton. That is why Diatomaceous Earth has worked for nearly 2 centuries and will continue working for 2 centuries more. Wear a dust mask during application to avoid inhaling the fine particles. Keep children and pets away from the treated area until the dust settles, which takes about 30 minutes. Reapply after heavy rain washes the powder away. During dry weather, a single application can last for weeks. Start your first application in early spring when soil temperatures rise above 40 degrees and ticks begin their seasonal emergence. Maintain coverage from April through September, which is peak tick season across most of the United States. Your total cost for an entire season of protection will be less than what a pest control company charges for a single visit to your property. For maximum results, combine Diatomaceous Earth with a second weapon the industry also ignores: Permethrin-treated cotton tubes placed near rodent pathways in your yard. Mice are the primary host for tick larvae in the early stages of the tick life cycle. The mice collect the treated cotton for their nesting material, coating themselves with permethrin. Every tick that feeds on a treated mouse dies before it can mature to the next stage. You're not just killing ticks in your yard, you are breaking the entire reproductive cycle at the source. I need to be honest with you about one limitation. Diatomaceous Earth is not selective. It will kill beneficial insects that crawl through it, including ground beetles and some pollinators that walk on soil. Do not apply it directly on flowering plants where bees are actively foraging. Target the perimeter zones and shaded areas where ticks concentrate, not the center of your flower garden. Used strategically, the collateral impact on beneficial insects remains minimal. Used carelessly, it can disrupt your local ecosystem. That honesty is what separates this channel from the ones selling you something. This knowledge did not die. It was waiting. Waiting under the shelves, stacked with $300 spray bottles, waiting behind the glossy brochures of pest control franchises, waiting for someone to open the vault. The ancient Greeks used this powder to build their cities. Peter Caston rediscovered it in a German hillside in 1836. American farmers relied on it for over a century before the chemical industry erased it from memory. The CDC confirms that tick-borne diseases are doubling. The EPA confirms that Diatomaceous Earth is safe. The pest control industry knows a $15 bag would collapse their entire billing model. And now you know all three. If this video made a difference, subscribe and share it. Every share preserves what the industry tried to erase. The next vault opens soon, and what is inside is even heavier.